Right now, somewhere inside your mouth, there is a war going on. A slow, silent, invisible siege. On one side, sugar, acid, and billions of bacteria. On the other, your teeth, the hardest thing your entire body knows how to build. And most days, you never notice this war at all. But when your side starts to lose, oh, you notice. It begins as a twinge, then a throb, then a deep, hot, pulsing ache that climbs out of a single tooth and swallows your entire skull, your jaw, your ear, your eye, until you can't eat, can't sleep, can't think about anything else in the world. A toothache. You already know exactly how it feels. Now take that pain and take away everything that saves you from it. No dentist, no drill, no filling, no numbing needle, no painkillers, no little waiting room with a fish tank and a magazine. Take away the whole modern world and leave just one thing behind: the pain. A rotting tooth, a Stone Age jaw, and nowhere on earth to run. So here's the question. It's one of those questions that sounds almost funny until you really sit in it for a second. How did ancient humans survive a toothache? And the answer is a genuinely wild story. It's a story about the food that betrayed us, about a worm that never existed but that almost every culture on Earth believed in anyway, about pain so bad it could actually kill you, and about a discovery that will completely change how you picture the people of the deep past. Because ancient humans did not just suffer in silence. Some of them fought back. With flint, with drills, with something disturbingly close to surgery, thousands of years before you'd ever guess. So open wide. Let's take a look. Let's start by killing a myth, because this one trips almost everybody up. When you picture a caveman's mouth, you probably imagine something horrifying. Brown stumps, black rot, a grim mess of decay. And it feels obvious, right? No toothbrushes, no toothpaste, no floss, no dentists for hundreds of thousands of years. Their teeth must have been a disaster. Except they weren't. Here's the twist that surprises everyone. For most of human history, ancient humans had genuinely good teeth. Often better than yours. Think about who these early people were. Hunter-gatherers, foragers. Their food was meat, fish, roots, nuts, seeds, tough wild plants, the occasional bit of wild honey if they were lucky and brave. And notice what is almost completely missing from that list. Sugar. Soft, sticky, processed carbohydrate. The stuff that modern tooth decay absolutely feeds on. It basically did not exist in their world. So when archaeologists dig up the jaws of ancient hunter-gatherers and look at their teeth, they usually don't find a mess of cavities. They find teeth that are worn, yes, sometimes worn almost flat from a lifetime of chewing gritty, tough, unprocessed food. But cavities, the actual rotting holes? Rare. Their mouths were tough, worn, and remarkably healthy. For hundreds of thousands of years, this was the deal. Bad food for your teeth barely existed, so bad teeth barely existed. And then, about 12,000 years ago, humans did something that felt like the smartest move they had ever made. And it wrecked our mouths almost overnight. They invented farming. This is the villain of our story, and it doesn't look like a villain at all. It looks like wheat, barley, grain, porridge, bread. For the first time, humans had a steady, reliable, storable supply of soft, starchy, carbohydrate-rich food. It kept people alive through winters. It fed growing villages. It built the first towns. By almost every measure, farming was a triumph. But your teeth did not get the memo, because those soft, sticky, starchy foods are a feast not for you, but for the bacteria living in your mouth. Give those bacteria a mouthful of ground-up grain, of sticky porridge, of sweet stored fruit, and they throw a party. They eat the sugars, and they excrete acid. And that acid does one thing very well. It dissolves the enamel on your teeth. The change in the archaeological record is dramatic. You go from ancient hunter-gatherers with hardly any cavities to early farmers whose teeth are suddenly riddled with them. Decay explodes. Abscesses appear. Tooth loss climbs. In a relatively short window of time, humans traded a life of hard, healthy teeth for a full life of grain and a mouth full of holes. We didn't just invent farming, we invented the cavity. So let's actually look at what's happening inside a rotting tooth, because it makes everything that comes next make sense. Picture a single tooth. On the outside is enamel, the hardest material your body produces, harder than bone. Under that is a softer layer called dentin. And in the very center, protected deep inside, is the pulp, a soft core packed with blood vessels and nerves. That nerve is the reason a toothache is one of the worst pains a human being can feel. Now the siege begins. Bacteria and their acid eat through the enamel first. Slowly, silently. You feel nothing. Then they break into the softer dentin underneath, and now decay speeds up, tunneling inward. Still, maybe just a twinge. And then they reach the pulp, the nerve. And the moment they touch that nerve, the pain arrives, full volume, no warning, and it does not stop. Worse, the infection can pool at the root and swell into an abscess, a pocket of pus pressing on the nerve and the bone, throbbing with your own heartbeat. For you, this is a bad week and an appointment. For an ancient human, this was a slow-motion catastrophe with no exit. And that is why, all over the ancient world, humans desperate to explain this invisible agony landed on the very same answer. An answer that was completely wrong and completely universal. They blamed a worm. This is one of the strangest and most beautiful facts in the whole history of medicine. The idea of the toothworm. The belief that toothache was caused by a tiny worm, burrowing and gnawing away inside the tooth, and that the pain you felt was the worm feeding. And here is the incredible part. This wasn't one culture's odd little superstition. It shows up almost everywhere. Ancient Mesopotamia wrote about the toothworm on clay tablets thousands of years ago. Ancient Egypt believed it. Ancient China, ancient India, ancient Greece, and later medieval Europe, all of them, independently, across thousands of miles and thousands of years, arrived at the same picture: a worm in the tooth. Why? Because when you look at a rotting tooth, it kind of makes sense. There's a hole. Something is clearly eating it from the inside. The pain feels alive, like something moving in there. Without microscopes, without any idea that bacteria even existed, a hungry little worm was a genuinely reasonable guess. It was humanity, staring at an invisible enemy and drawing the most logical monster it could imagine. And once you believe in the worm, you get worm cures, all sorts of them. People tried to smoke the worm out, heating seeds and breathing the fumes over the aching tooth. They tried to lure it out with honey. They chanted spells and prayers to command the worm to leave. For thousands of years, a huge amount of human dental care was, essentially, a war against a creature that was never actually there. But here's what we can't forget under the strangeness. The pain was real. Deadly real. Because a bad tooth in the ancient world was not just about agony. It could genuinely kill you. Here's how. That abscess, that pocket of infection at the root, it doesn't always stay put. The infection can spread. Down into the jawbone, rotting it. Up into the sinuses. Into the soft tissue of the face and neck, swelling it shut. And in the worst cases, the bacteria get into the bloodstream, and the infection races through the whole body. We call that sepsis, and even today, with hospitals and antibiotics, sepsis is a killer. In the ancient world, a person could, and people did, die from a tooth. From a single rotten tooth, a strong, healthy adult could be dead within days. Skulls survived from the deep past, showing massive abscesses that had eaten deep into the jaw, the kind of infection that very likely ended that person's life. A toothache was not a nuisance. Sometimes, a toothache was a death sentence. And it wasn't rare. That's the part that's hard to picture from our comfortable modern chairs. In many ancient farming communities, bad teeth were everywhere. Walk through an early village and you would have seen it on face after face. Adults with swollen, aching jaws. People missing teeth, gaps and stumps where molars used to be. Old men and old women who had lost almost every tooth in their heads, their faces caved in, reduced to gumming soft food and mush just to survive. And worst of all, children. Little kids with rotting baby teeth, crying through the night, with parents who loved them completely and could do almost nothing but hold them and wait for morning. Imagine being that parent. Your child is in agony, screaming, feverish, a hot swollen cheek, and you have no dentist to drive to, no pharmacy, no pill. You have herbs and firelight and prayer and your own 2 hands. The helplessness of it is almost unbearable to think about. Toothache wasn't just one person's private misery. It was a constant, grinding presence in the life of the whole group. A shadow that hung over every meal, every child, every winter. So faced with pain this bad, this common, and these stakes, what did ancient humans actually do about it? Because you can only chant at a worm for so long when your whole village's faces are on fire. The first line of defense was the plant world. And this is where ancient humans were genuinely, quietly brilliant. Over thousands of years of trial, error, and desperation, they figured out which plants could dull the pain, long before anyone understood why. They chewed the bark and leaves of the willow tree. Now here is the amazing part. Willow bark contains a natural chemical closely related to the active ingredient in aspirin. These people had, in effect, discovered a painkiller growing on a tree, thousands of years before chemists would isolate it. They used clove, which contains a natural compound that numbs and disinfects, and which dentists still use in a form today. They packed aching teeth with herbs, with resins, with honey, which can actually fight bacteria. They chewed on special sticks, frayed at the end into bristles, the world's first toothbrushes, to scrub the teeth and freshen the mouth. They rinsed with all sorts of things, some helpful, some horrifying. And when a plant took the edge off the pain, even a little, that knowledge was precious. It got passed down, parent to child, healer to healer, for generations. And they didn't just wait for the pain to come either. Some ancient humans worked to keep it away in the first place. Long before the toothbrush, people in many parts of the world chewed on special twigs, fraying one end into soft bristles and scrubbing their teeth and gums with it. Some of these chew sticks came from trees whose sap naturally fights the bacteria in your mouth. People scraped their tongues, rinsed with water, with herbs, with wine, with things you would never dream of putting in your mouth today. It wasn't a modern dental routine, but it was the same instinct, thousands of years early. Clean the mouth, fight the rot, hold the enemy back. The first humans to run a frayed stick across their teeth by the morning fire were doing something you did just a few hours ago. But sometimes prevention failed, and sometimes herbs and honey just weren't enough. Sometimes the tooth was too far gone, the pain too total, and there was only one option left. The tooth had to come out. And I want you to really picture this, because there was no gentle way to do it. There was no numbing, no anesthetic, no injection to make the mouth go quiet and dead before the work began. Extraction meant gripping a living, screaming with pain tooth, rooted deep in the jaw and physically ripping it out, while the person was wide awake and feeling absolutely everything. They used whatever tools they had. Fingers and brute strength. Strings tied to the tooth and yanked. Small sticks and levers to pry and loosen it. Later, cruder and cruder metal instruments, pincers and pliers built for exactly this, grim tools that show up again and again through history. And you have to understand the strange logic of it. As unbearable as pulling the tooth was, the pain of the rotten tooth was often worse, and it never ended. The extraction was seconds of hell to escape weeks or months of it. A moment of screaming agony for the sweet, blessed silence afterward. When you understand that trade, you understand why humans were willing to do something so brutal to their own mouths. They weren't being savage. They were being desperate, and they were being smart. Now, if the story stopped there at herbs and yanked out teeth, it would already be a good one. But it doesn't stop there. Because ancient humans didn't only pull teeth out. In a discovery that genuinely stunned the scientists who found it, some of them tried to save teeth, to repair them, to operate on them. And they did it far, far earlier than anyone imagined. Let me take you to a place called Mehrgarh, an ancient farming site in what is now Pakistan. Archaeologists there uncovered something in the jaws of people who lived around 9,000 years ago. 9,000 years. Long before writing. Long before cities as we know them. And in the molars, the back teeth, of several of these people, they found tiny, neat, deliberate holes. Drilled holes. Bored right into the biting surface of the tooth, into the exact spots where you'd expect decay. These were not accidents. When scientists examined them closely, the holes had the clean, concentric marks of a tool spinning against enamel. The people of Mehrgarh had taken a sharp point of flint, likely mounted on a little bow drill, the same kind of drill they used to make beads, and they had used it to drill into rotten human teeth. To clear out the decay. This is dentistry. Real, deliberate, prehistoric dentistry, 9,000 years ago, done with stone. Sit with that for a moment. Someone, 9,000 years ago, sat down in front of another person in pain and carefully, deliberately, drilled into their tooth to try to fix it. And the healed evidence on some of these teeth suggests the patient survived and kept using those teeth for years afterward. And it doesn't even stop with drilling. At other ancient sites, researchers have found teeth that were, in effect, filled. One famous jaw, thousands of years old, has a cracked tooth packed with beeswax, placed there, it seems, to seal the crack and calm the pain. A prehistoric filling. There are ancient teeth with the beginnings of decay carefully scraped and cleaned out. There is even evidence from later ancient civilizations of humans binding loose teeth together with fine gold wire and crafting replacement teeth to fill the gaps in a smile. The deep past was full of people looking at a broken mouth and refusing to simply give up on it. And think about what this really means about the people themselves. To drill a human tooth, you need more than a sharp stone. You need someone who has watched and learned and remembered which teeth can be saved and which must go. You need a patient who trusts that healer enough to sit still and open their mouth. You need a whole community that has decided over generations that a person in pain is worth helping, worth trying for, worth risking a strange and frightening procedure to save. A flint drill in a rotten molar is not just a tool. It is proof of knowledge passed down, of trust between people, of care. 9,000 years ago, someone cared enough to try. We really do have to rewrite the picture in our heads. Not a world of helpless sufferers waiting to die of a toothache, but a world with healers, with knowledge, with tools, with people willing to attempt something as terrifying and delicate as drilling a hole in a living tooth, armed with nothing but stone and courage and the accumulated wisdom of 1,000 painful lifetimes. And there's one more gift those ancient teeth give us, and it's my favorite part of the whole story. Because to an archaeologist, a single tooth is one of the most valuable objects a human body can leave behind. Teeth are the hardest, toughest, most durable part of us. Long after the flesh is gone, long after even the bones have crumbled, the teeth remain. And they are packed with information. A tooth is a biography written in enamel. The wear on it tells us what that person ate and how they chewed. The cavities and abscesses tell us about their diet and their suffering. Fine lines in the enamel, formed as the tooth grew in childhood, can record moments of starvation, sickness, or stress, freezing a hard winter or a hungry year into the tooth forever. And the chemistry locked inside a tooth, absorbed from the water and food of childhood, can even tell us roughly where a person grew up and whether they traveled far from home before they died. From a single tooth, we can reconstruct a diet, a childhood, a journey, a life. The very thing that caused ancient humans so much agony has become one of our clearest windows into who they actually were. And there's a deeper reason all of this mattered so much. A reason that goes right to the heart of survival. Because your teeth are not just for smiling. They are how you eat. And in the ancient world, if you could not eat, you did not last long. Think about it. Lose enough teeth, and you can no longer chew tough meat, crack hard nuts, grind fibrous roots. A powerful hunter, a skilled gatherer, someone the whole group depended on, could be slowly brought down not by a predator or a wound, but by their own mouth failing them, one tooth at a time. Starving, not because there was no food, but because they could no longer break it down. In a world with no soft bread, no soup from a can, no blender, a mouthful of holes was a slow, quiet threat to your very life. So a toothache was never really just about pain. It was tangled up with hunger, with strength, with your place in the group, with survival itself. The mouth sat right at the crossroads of everything that kept an ancient human alive. Which is exactly why humans fought so hard, and so cleverly, and so bravely to protect it. It wasn't vanity. It was life and death hiding behind a grimace. And that is why those ancient teeth, the ones we dig up today, matter so much to us now, because they survived when everything else was lost. A skull can crumble, but the enamel endures. And so, thousands of years later, a scientist can hold a single tooth up to the light and read it like a page. This person ate a lot of grain and paid for it in cavities. This person went hungry again and again as a child, and their teeth remember every lean winter. This person grew up drinking the water of one distant valley, then died 100 miles away. This person was in terrible pain at the end. Whole lives, whole journeys, whole stories of suffering and survival, all locked inside little pieces of enamel that outlasted the flesh, the bone, the name, and the memory of everyone who ever knew them. So let's come all the way back to you, sitting there with your comfortable modern mouth, and maybe running your tongue over your teeth right about now. The next time you dread a dentist's appointment, the next time you flinch at that little drill or grumble about a filling, remember what that fear actually is. It is ancient. It is one of the oldest, deepest, most universal fears our species has. The fear of pain in the mouth, of the rot you cannot see, of the invisible enemy eating you from the inside. Your ancestors felt that exact fear, in the dark, by the fire, with no help coming. And the fact that today, that terror has been reduced to a mild annoyance, a numb cheek, and an hour of your afternoon, is one of the quiet miracles of the modern world. Because for hundreds of thousands of years, this was one of the great unsolved agonies of being human. A war fought inside the mouth, in silence, with no cavalry coming. And ancient humans met it the way they met everything else that tried to destroy them, with herbs and honey and willow bark, with strings and stones and gritted teeth, with prayers to a worm that wasn't there, and astonishingly, with flint drills and beeswax and steady, careful, impossibly brave hands. Every tooth in your head is a survivor of that war. And every one of them carries, hidden in its enamel, the memory of 100,000 years of humans who refused to just lie down and let the pain win. Thanks for watching. If you like the questions most people never think to ask about the people who came before us, subscribe and stick around, because next time we're digging into another strange, forgotten corner of the ancient human world.